Yeah, we started this vineyard in '97, and we were fully planted in 2001. Everything above us, below us, it took us till 2003 to plant, and then on the far bottom, about 700 feet below where we stand right now on the water line, is we started our first planting of the riverfront this year, and we have a wide variety here, all the way from Cab all the way down to Riesling, but the whites stay up on the upper half. We travel up from the river about 2.5 miles up, and once you get up there, you're about 1,450 foot elevation. The river bottom is 300 foot elevation, and that's why we have a huge split. I mean, once you get to about 1,000 feet, anything above 1,000 to 1,100 feet we like to keep for the whites. Anything below that we keep for the reds. And so right now we're standing in reds country right now. We're at about 900,000 feet elevation right now. We are what we're going to focus on now is planting clonal selections of Cab down on the very bottom. We think it's a very unique environment down there that is conducive to Cab growing, and we have several hundred acres down there that we think will raise some of the best Cab that we think that the Pacific Northwest can raise, and hopefully we can compete in the world markets as some of the top Cab, which we already have with Quilceda getting those 100 points. So I mean, you can't get much better than that. So we've had people that have broken that ground before. So we're going to try to get there with that.
So the first time I came out here, actually it was Bill Den Hoed who was here, and he drove me around, and I just had a hard time even catching my breath. It was so exciting to see something like this in Washington, and so I on the spot told them that this would be a Chateau Ste. Michelle vineyard, and we signed a very long-term contract for all the grapes that were planted and being planted at that time.
When you retired from Ste. Michelle and started Long Shadows, did you have it in the back of your mind that someday you'd buy this vineyard?
Well, I had even talked to them very early on about the fact that I'd like to put a winery out here or do something. I mean, obviously the vineyard is one of those places that once you see it, you'll never leave your mind. It's just so all impacting, and so it was such a big vineyard that I probably never really thought that I was going to own it someday, but as we started buying grapes for Long Shadows, and of course the Den Hoeds are very close friends of mine, and talked about creating a wine together that the two brothers wanted to create in honor of their parents. It was then that I started saying, well, if I could put a group together and everything, and assure you guys that it's going to not deviate from the vision that you have of what it will look like someday, would you be interested in selling it? And so they agreed, and we came up with I think a fair price, and they also, I wanted them to stay a part of it, which they did too, so they continue to manage it and own 20% of it. So it's a phenomenal feeling to be one of the people now that can not only be here but say, hey, I'm part of it.
And now you're selling grapes to your former company.
That's right. Yeah.
So is that kind of weird, or is it just part of business?
I think it's just part of business. Yeah, it's a very small community. The wine industry, even in its broadest terms, is still a relatively small fraternity of wineries, and it's surprising how quickly, if you're a serious operator in the business, that you can get to know people from all over the world who share the passion, and so you don't want to burn bridges in this business, because you'll probably bump into the bridge that you burned
right
on the way back.
You also sell a lot of grapes to Pacific Rim, which Den Hoeds are involved in. So there's a lot of fingers in here.
That's right. Randall Graham long ago had a lot of ideas as to what he wanted to do different. He always has been a big proponent of Washington grapes, and so he picked this site as a place where he wanted to experiment with biodynamic Riesling. So we have 140 acres of biodynamic Riesling that is, grown to all those very extreme and in some instances strange specifications. And Pacific Rim is obviously the brand that was created with those grapes, and the Den Hoeds actually have built a wine facility to process those grapes. So yeah, the interlockings of relationships.
Eric, it's definitely an incredible site, and probably the first thing in Washington State that a winemaker can think about is frost, especially like a year like this year, where that's actually my 17th harvest in Washington State, and that's actually the coolest vintage I've seen so far, which is fine for the quality. It's just amazing, great fresh aromas, flavors, a lot of dark flavor. But then I started also 15 days later than usual, when we know that at the end of crush is going to be like toward the end of October because of the frost. This site is always one of the last one to get frosted because of the great river. There we have a mile-wide Columbia River. We have a great airflow. So really, having a peace of mind that is not going to froze and I can really let the grapes hang long time is incredible for the development of the grapes. Also, we have always a nice little breeze. So another thing is great. Actually, there is some biodynamic blocks just above us there. There is like very low pressure on odium or mildew or whatnot, or botrytis, because it's always windy, so we're not going to have a sour rot as easily as other places, because we just have to open up the canopy a little bit, and it's always going to have that little flow that's going to keep the grapes very healthy. And that's really important. So right now, for me as a winemaker, I'm looking at the grapes, and I want my grapes healthy when they come to the winery. That's more than anything the most important, and that's like already, what I get with Wallula Vineyard. Or now actually Alan Shoup with the Den Hoed renamed it the Benches. What I also really enjoy about this site is the configuration, with part of the vineyard being higher altitude, like 700 feet above the river, and with it a bit cooler site, all very deep soil, and we can do incredible wines. We have some Chardonnay, Viognier, and some Riesling there. And as we go down, there is more and more benches where it's just like fractured basalt, like pieces like this, and we have such places like 2 inches, 3 inches of dirt on top of the basalt, and so it really makes the vine kind of stress and wants to concentrate the grapes. So we get great intensity with Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, all those red grapes. You get really nice, mature, and low yield. Like usually we cannot even get 3 tons per acre. There usually it's more like 2.8 tons per acre, and it's just incredible intensity to the wine. That's having a site where there is a lot of terroir, somehow a lot of aspect to it, is I think also when somebody wants to make a wine only from one site, like the Den Hoeds, then it's very important to have different aspect to the vineyard. So there is a lot that does, and more than when I come to the benches and I look at the view, I'm happy. So that's important for the winemaker too.